Good afternoon and welcome to our fifth and final day of our Tableau Tip Battle. Thank you guys so much for dialing in. And from me, Sophie Sparks, the Community Manager here at the Information Lab, I hope you're having a lovely afternoon. I'm based in London, so good afternoon from me, but depending where in the world you're dialing in from, I hope you're having a good morning or a good evening as well, especially if you, like myself and everyone else here in the UK, is in some form of lockdown. So I hope you've had a good staying at home week. Now, today we've got our last tip battle, and I was lucky enough to see a preview of the tips that Soha and Ryan are going to be showing us today, yesterday evening. And I have to tell you, I'm pretty excited. They're going to show you some really, really cool tips. I will taking you through more advanced chart types, as well as weaving in some formatting tips, some little speed fizzing tips, and other nitbits that will let you make your visualizations really pop and help you improve all your vizzing. So if you aren't familiar with Soha and Ryan, let me introduce them to you now. You may know Soha from some of her previous Visit the Days. She builds beautiful work with a real focus on humanitarian and social conscience visualizations. On her Twitter feed at the moment, at the top, she's got a really beautiful map box backed visualization that I suggest you check out. Ryan, one of my fellow data schoolers, is a much quieter guy, and you may get that in his tips as well. He's got a lovely soft voice, but that means his genius is often not put on display. So you're really, really lucky to get to see him go through his vizzing tips today, because he doesn't often make loud public appearances. So where Soha and Ryan have told me they've got a pretty packed hour's worth of tips. So how we're going to do voting today is a little bit different from the previous days. Also, if you've joined us since day one, you may realize I'm not always the most slick on Kahoot or other voting platforms. So we're going to go a bit old school today. And what I would like you to do, everyone who's watching, is if Soha or Ryan show something that you think is really pretty cool, I'd like you to put one little thumbs up emoji into the YouTube chat box for me. If you see something that you just think this is amazingly awesome, I'm definitely going to use it, wow, can you give me 2 thumbs up emojis? And if you see something where your mind is just blown, fantastic, amazing, wow, something you're definitely going to try on the weekend, can you put a little mind blown emoji into the chat for me? And I've got a piece of paper and a pen, clicking it just there, right beside my right hand. And I'm going to be keeping a tally of how many 1 thumbs, 2 thumbs, and mind blown emojis I see in the stream during today. And at the end, I'll let Soha and Ryan know collectively if you thought their tips were pretty awesome, really, really 2 thumbs cool, or just mind blown amazing. So if you could keep your chat window open as you go through the tips and throw me some emojis, that would be fantastic. So if you have missed any of the tips we've gone through so far this week, all the videos are up on YouTube. All the videos have linked either workbooks for the Tableau tips we've gone through, or files that link to the workflows for the Tableau prep we went through yesterday. So you can catch all the action that we've gone through in the last week. And Ryan and Soha have told me they're going to show you about 20 big tips today. So by the end of the hour, we will have gone through over 162 Tableau and Tableau prep tips over the previous 5 days. More of some of the little slick things that all the presenters have shown you are counted a tip. So at least 162 Tableau tips if you've tuned in for all 5 sessions. So without further ado, I should let Ryan and Soho get started. So Ryan, if you could unmute yourself and grab the screen off me, we'll get started.
Cool. Can you see my screen?
Not quite yet. I will stop my share, Ryan. Let's see if you can get your screen share working.
All right, one moment. Oh, there you go.
Perfect, Ryan. We can see you sharp and clear. But it looks like, unfortunately, Ryan, we can't hear you. Would you make sure you're unmuted? It says you're unmuted, but it doesn't look like we're able to hear you.
All good?
Much better. Perfect. Okay, take away.
Okay, one moment. The first tip that I'm going to work through is sheet switching. So to build this, initially worksheets, one of them is just a simple line chart looking at sales for different segments. And then the other one is a bar chart looking at sales again for different subcategories. So what I'm going to do first, I've made a parameter which I've called choice. And if I just show you what I've built into that, I've got one option called segment and one option that's called subcategory. And this is going to control which of the charts is shown. And then as well, on each of the sheets, I need a filter. So it will be true or false. So on the subcategory one, I've just made this calculation here, choice equals subcategory. And I've got the same one for segment. So choice equals segment. So what I'm going to do now on my dashboard that I will want to switch them in, if I put on a vertical container and drag both of my sheets into it. And then the important part for this is to make sure that I hide the titles. So right now, nothing's happening when I switch between them. So I'm going to go back into the sheets and then configure the filters. So for choice equals segment, I want this to be true. And then for choice equals subcategory, I want this to be. In fact, let me uncheck that. Perfect. So now when I switch between them, oh, I need to change that slightly. Yep, perfect. And then if I just make it take up the entire view, when I change my parameter, it switches between the sheets. So that's my first tip. On to the second one, I'm going to be looking at set action, drill down and filter. So this is one that I produced already, but then I'll just go through it step by step as well. So this is the functionality that I'm going to want to show. When I click on any of the bars, it will use a set action to drill into it, but it will hide all of the other subcategories at the same time. So putting that together, I'll need my category set. So this is just a set that I've made on the category field. I want to put that onto color. I want to put my category or my category drill down. So this is a calculated field that I've made. So I'll just drop into that calculation in a moment. And then I want sales. So just showing what my category drill down does. So this is what controls the set action. So if something is in the category set, then it'll show subcategory, else it'll show the category. So that's what controls the drill down. So that should be working at the moment. I just need to put category on as well. So I have category as detail. Yeah, so perfect. This is the bare bones of what I'm looking for. This is the set action. So what I need now is I've put together a counter. So I'll put that on the label so you can see how it works. And the counter is a calculated field where I'm looking at the window average of the average of if something's in the set, then return 1, else 0. So right now, it gives me back a 1 if something's in the set. I just need to edit the table calculation because I want it to count across everything. Good, so this is what I want. And then the final piece is a true or false filter that will hide things outside of the set when I drill down. So looking at this calculation, if the counter is 0, then it will return true. So, and otherwise, it will only show things in the set. So I've put this onto my filters. Select true. And then there it is. So the next tip I've got is sort of building on from this. I've set up my set action to work within this worksheet, but assuming that I want to then put this into a dashboard as well, I've got a tip to save some time. So here it is in a dashboard that I've made. Oh, I've got ahead of myself. So let me just go back to the worksheet tab. So I'll set it back to the default originally. Good. Okay, that. So that should work now. Yes, perfect. So it's working currently in my worksheet, but then on my dashboard, when I click, it doesn't do anything. And that's because as default, when you create an action in a worksheet, it doesn't carry over to a dashboard. So a way around that is in the actions, editing the source sheet. So right now it's just looking at the worksheet that I've built this in. If I change it to look at sample superstore, which is my data set, and then okay that, as soon as I then put that in a dashboard, the action works as normal. And that's a really good time saving tip. So if you're ever putting parameter actions or set actions into worksheets when you're building and testing them, by doing this, you can then just move them straight over to the dashboard without having to redo them. And then my next one is on default number formatting. So quite a quick tip, but one I think that's very useful. So what I'm looking at here, I've got all my states and I've got a field for profit ratio. So right now it's completely unformatted. So one of the ways that you can format numbers in Tableau is clicking this drop down and then, right click, or if I click here, and go to format. And what I want to do is format my profit ratio. So right now it's in standard number format, but I want it to be a percentage. So that's now done. But the problem with doing it this way is if I go into another sheet and drag my profit ratio in again, the formatting doesn't persist. So this is why default number formatting is really useful. So if I go back now, and what I'm going to do is change the default number format. So I click the drop down, default properties, number format. And what I want it to be at the moment is percentage. So if I click on percentage, it'll let me choose the decimal places. So ideally I'll drop it to 1. But I can go one step further now, and by going to custom, it brings up this text box here, and that gives you a lot of options on how you want to format numbers. So because the profit ratio can be either positive or negative, I think it might be a nice touch to show a little arrow to indicate whether it's a positive value or a negative value. So what you can do here is just copy in this text that I've got. So ahead of the semicolon, that will represent positive values. So it will show this up arrow, and then after the semicolon, we'll show the down arrow. So I just want to edit this slightly to get rid of my extra decimal place and get rid of my minus symbol. Okay, that. And now I have to put profit ratio back on. That should work. Okay, so for some reason it hasn't worked on this sheet, but so it's carried over here. So this is ideally what I'm looking for. And then now any subs retain that formatting. So at this point, I'd like to switch over to Soha and let her get started on her tips.
Hi, I'm going to share my screen now, and thank you for that. So those were some really great tips. I'm going to show you guys some other tips as well about how to do. So my first tip is going to be how to show the total for your stack bar chart, but without creating a extra calculated field. So let me start off with a blank sheet. And we're going to look at sales. And in this example, we're going to look at by subcategory. And let's say we want to color by segment. So now you've got your stack bar chart, and you'll notice when you put sales on label, it will label every single section, but you want to get your totals as well. One way of doing this is creating an LOD calculation, or what you can do is leverage your reference line. So I'm just going to add a reference line, and I want it for each cell because I want a total for every single bar. And in my label, I'm going to put value. So now you can see I've got my total above my bars. And now it's just all about formatting it and cleaning it up. So remember to remove your reference line. And also click OK, just making sure when I go format that the alignment is all the same, because a lot of the time you'll see that it will naturally align to the left. So just make sure that your alignment of your values is in the center. And now you've got your totals just utilizing a reference line. And another quick tip when using stack bar chart is adding white borders. It just breaks up the different sections of your stack bar chart and it makes it a bit clearer. My second tip is how to create a spark line with the dot at the end of it without having to do dual axes and creating dots. So this is really simple. Again, let's start from blank. So we're going to look at things by month. And again, we just want to see sales. So now I've got my line, amazing. And I want a dot at the end of my line to create that spark line look. So just control, put it on your label. And you're going to select the min or max option instead of selecting the line ends option. When you select the line ends option, you don't have that dot at the end, which is what we want. So when you select the min and max option and you make sure your field is on month of order date, you can see now at the end of my spark line, I've got a little dot with the label. So another thing is that you want to access your preference file to color your line, and you can see you can't, and this gets really frustrating. So a quick tip is just creating a dummy field. So double click in your marks card here, and then in quotation marks, let's just put a random letter, K, for example. Close your quotation marks. This is my dummy field. I'm now going to put that on color, and now I've got the option to access my preference colors. So I can now go to edit colors and pick whatever random color it is that I want. For my next tip, I'm going to show you guys how to use a log function to distribute your colors when you do a heat map and include the total. So I'm sure we've all been there where we've had to create a heat map, and then when you add the totals, it just really skews your colors. I'm going to put year here, and I want to see months. This example, let me make this entire view. Awesome. And again, I'm just going to look at things by sales. Let's stick this on text, color. So I've got my heat map, and now when I add my totals, quickly, I'm going to edit my colors, and I'm going to select the option that says include totals. And now you can see the problem is that everything is skewed for the grand total. So what I'm going to do is double click on sales, add a space, and I'm going to add the log function just in front of my sum of sales. Make sure to close your brackets. And now it's just normalize the distribution of my colors for my heat map. And another quick tip here as well is, let's say I want to rename grand total, just go format, right click on grand total, go on format, and then here where it says grand total, I can name this test 1, for example. And then you can do the same thing here for the grand total as well. Go format, under label in grand total, just name it whatever it is that you want, test 2. For my fourth tip, I'm going to show you guys how you can use the, instead of writing a long if statement, we're going to use the date trunc function to create something like this where you can just change your date level really easily. So again, I'm just going to create a new sheet. And in my parameter, let me just open this up. You'll notice that I've got day, week, month, quarter, and year written out. It's all in lowercase because that's how Tableau understands dates. So I can change it in the display as. And then we'll go OK. And now we're going to create a calculated field. I'm going to call this date trunc date level. So instead of writing an if statement where we're saying if date level equals day, then, and so on and so forth, you can leverage the date trunc function like this. So I've got date trunc, and then here, instead of you writing quarter or whatever it is that your date level is going to be, you write your date level parameter, comma, and then we want this based on order date, just like this. I'll go OK, and now you can see the calculated field becomes the date. And the only way for this to work is for this to be on date trunc date level continuous. So it has to be on exact date and continuous for the level to work. And then I'll go sales. And now when I want to switch this up to a month level, you can see it's aggregated upwards to a month level, quarter, year, week, and so on and so forth. But again, for this to work, you have to make sure that your calculated field is on exact date and it's on continuous. Next tip I'm going to show you guys is how to create bands and a sparkline all in one sheet. So I'm sure we've all had to create something that looks like this. And instead of doing it in multiple different sheets, we're going to do this all in one sheet. So we're going to have to create 3 calculated fields. First one, that's going to be our latest year. I'm just going to call this latest year. And this is going to be an LOD. So fixed colon on the sum. And here that's where we write our if function. We're going to say if year of order date equals, and then again, we're going to nest our max. If you're new to LODs, I'd recommend you breaking this out into 2 different calculations just so you can get the hang of it. And then I'm going to close. So now this part of my calculated field will return my maximum year. So here I'm just saying if the year equals the maximum year, then I want sales, and then I'm just going to end it. And then close my curly brackets. So now I've got my latest year. And what I would do also is for latest year, I'm just going to duplicate this. And then I'm going to edit. And this is going to be called previous year. And for the previous year, the calculation is going to look exactly the same, except after the curly bracket, we're adding -1 because we want the maximum year to be minus what the maximum year is to get the previous year. Again, okay, so now I've got my previous year and my latest year, and I want to calculate the percentage change between those two. So I'm going to create a calculated field for this percent change. And here I'm going to wrap the first part in a bracket, the sum of latest year minus sum of previous year. Close the bracket, divided by sum of previous year. Now I got my percentage change. So I've got the three calculations that I want. Now it's all about creating the chart. So we want our sparkline. I'm just going to do order date, looking at this over time, sales. Click it here. Quickly add this on label. Min, max, month. Got my sparkline. And now what I'm going to do is for previous year, I'm going to add this on details. The latest year as well, I'm going to add this on details. And my percent change, I'm going to add that on detail. So now what you have to do is you just go to title, double click, and we're going to add those fields here. So let's go center, current year, actually insert here, and then I can add my fields. So this is my latest year, and I'm going to add the verses, and I'm going to add my previous year next to it like this, and then underneath, I'm going to have my percentage change. I'm going to quickly format this. So I want this to be size. Make it bold, make it bold. So now I've created my bands and my sparkline all in one sheet, just by adding the fields that I wanted in details and just leveraging your title. So you can bring in your fields in your title as well. Next, quick tip before I switch to Ryan. I'm going to show you how to do the numbers above a line. I think it adds a very neat look and feel to a dashboard. And I remember I learned about this first initially during a workout Wednesday. I can't remember which one, but it was a really good one. So we're going to do this, put subcategory in our rows, sales in our columns, make this entire view, sort it. What I also like to do is I like to align my labels. So I'm going to quickly format this and align my labels left. It gives it a neater look straight away. I'm going to make my bars a lot thinner, just like this. And then I'm going to add my sum of sales onto label like this. And now in the alignment, I'm going to pick left and the one up top here. And now you can still see it's in the center, it's not above the line. So what I do is I add a dummy field. It's just 2 quotation marks with a space, just like this. And I add that on text. And now straight away, you've got your label above your lines, just like this. And I'm going to turn off the borders around my bar, just like that. And that's it from my end before I switch over to Ryan, where he's now going to show you some really cool spatial tips.
Okay, just a moment. All right. So the tip that I'm going to share right now is how to draw a line between 2 points. So the map that I'm showing at the moment, all of the little blue dots represent skate parks in the UK. So to make this work, first of all, I've created a parameter for the name of the skate park. So I've got one parameter here for park 1, and it's just a parameter that I've created on the park name field. And then I've got the same thing for park 2. So the next thing that I want is to create a parameter action so that when a skate park is clicked, the name of that park is then fed into the parameter. So if I go to worksheet and then actions, so this is the one I've made to do that. So just jumping into the configuration, the parameter that I want to overwrite is park 1, and then the field that I want to update it with is park name. And then just to make it clear what's happening while I'm doing this, I've got it set on menu. And then I've done the same thing with add as park 2. So I'll just quickly show the configuration for that, but it's essentially the same. So now, just showing how that will work is when I click on a park and I choose add as park 1, so you can see in my parameter control here that's changed. And then the same thing will happen if I choose to add something as park 2. The coloring that I've got here, that's just been done with this true or false calculation. So I'm saying if the park 1 parameter is equal to park name or the same thing for park 2, then it will return true, otherwise false. And then that is what they're being colored on. In order to work out where the point is that I've selected, I've got this field here. So this is park 1 geometry. And what that does is I'm using Tableau's make point calculation. And I'm saying that if park 1 is equal to the name of the park, then bring back the latitude, also bring back the longitude, and then wrapping that inside the make point calculation. So what that's going to do is give me back a geographic point for the skate park I've selected. So now if I select park 2, it's done a couple of things here. So firstly, it's drawn a line between the two. If I just zoom in. And then if I hover over that line, I've got the distance as well. So I'll just dive into the calculations for these. So my line calculation, again, one of Tableau's new mapping calculations that they've added is make line. And this is quite straightforward. I've just put the make line and then told it to draw a line between Park 1 and Park 2 geometry. And then for the distance is quite similar. I've just said, use a distance calculation. Again, work it out between Park 1 and Park 2, and then miles is just the unit of measurement that I want. How I've got it to show on the map is that I've used the dual axis for longitude here. So if I just take that off dual axis, you'll see that the points are on one layer and then the line is on another. So that when I dual axis them, you just see it all on one. And then I added some parameter actions as well, just to remove the parks. So all it is a calculated field with the value of all. So what my parameter action will do, if I show you, I've made one for removing Park 1 and for removing Park 2, but what I'm doing is updating the parameter for the park and then feeding in the field remove park name, which I know has all. So that when I click on the park and then remove Park 1, it gets set back to all, and then the same for Park 2. And then the final tip that I've got is a small one again, but I think it's very useful. So what I've done now is I've got the chart that I just created on a dashboard, and assuming that I want to publish this, if I did it as is, when it's being viewed online, users would be able to move the map around like this, which if that was something that I intended would be useful. But if I want to maintain this fixed view of the UK and stop people from scrolling, then the way that I could do that is by going to map and then map options, and I can just uncheck all of these options here so that now this is essentially immutable. So when this is published online, the map will be stuck there and people won't be able to change the view. So it's useful if you've got a very specific geographic view that you want people to be able to see without accidentally zooming in or scrolling to another place on the planet and breaking the visual. So that's it for my tips. So I'll hand back over to Soha.
Awesome. So let me just share my screen. So now I'm going to show you, following on Ryan's spatial tips, some quick spatial tips of my own. So, sorry about that. There's a lot of things that you can do on the map itself in Tableau without going to Mapbox itself. So here I've got a quick map using the sample superstore dataset. And one quick tip is that you can change the color of your borders, of your lines, already just innately in Tableau instead of creating a custom map in Mapbox. Also, what you can do is if we go map and we go map layers, you can wash out your background, and what this will do, it will get rid of the background of your map and just give you a clean look if that's what you're after for your dashboard. And then if you go format, and then click on the window, I always do this where I get rid of my column dividers and row dividers, so I just don't have a line, anything around it at all. Now the next tip is, let's say you want to color the background of your map layer, but you can do this innately inside of Tableau instead of creating a custom map in Mapbox, because ideally you'd want your dashboard to match the color of your map as well, so it can all look neat and clean. So what you've got here, if you right click and go format, you click on the bucket and you go on pane. In pane, I can then select the color, any color I want, and it will color my whole dashboard innately inside of Tableau, just like as you guys can see here, instead of creating a custom map in Mapbox to get the background color that I want. So now the sea, or the area around the map, is whatever color it is that I want. Following this, this is a bit more of a exciting tip where I'm using the new latest buffer function and combining it with parameter actions, where if I click on an area in a map, you can see it will now create a buffer for me. So for this, I'm going to show you now how to do it. It relies on several different parameters. So firstly, we want to create two initial parameters that are going to be I called them source flat and source long, call them whatever it is that you want. And in this parameter, the data type is just going to be a float. And to make sure your allowable values is ticked on all. And this, I'm going to click on source long as well. And it's the exact same thing as well. Float, allowable values is on all, just like this. And now let me just show both parameter controls. So also, we're going to create another parameter called size, because we want to give the user the ability to change the size of their buffer. And all this is just a simple parameter. Again, it's an integer value, all allowable values. Again, just like that. Let me show my parameter control. And we're going to create a final parameter called unit, where we want to let the user, let's say in this scenario, flip between the units. So when you create a buffer, you've got the option to measure things based on meters, kilometers, miles, and feet. So that's what I've just done here, written all those out in lowercase. So firstly, we're going to create a calculated field that's going to be our source point using the make point function. I'm just going to call this source point. And all I'm doing here is using the make point, and we're going to make point based on our source lat and our source long. And these are the parameters that I just showed you guys. Go OK. And then I'm going to create next my destination points as well, which looks a lot like this, which is just make point, desc latitude, desc longitude. Okay, great. And then we're going to create our buffer calculation, which, here, this is what it looks like, where all we're doing is we're using the select point, which when I click on it, you'll see it's our source lat and our source long, and our parameter, which is the size, and our parameter again, which is the unit. So let's bring destination point. So for this data set, I'm using airline routes, and I'm just basing this on where the destination of airports are. Now I've got all my points, just like this, and let me just control, and we want to bring latitude again, just like this. And we're going to do a dual axis, but before I do that, we want to replace the destination point in this scenario with instead buffer select, just like this. So you can see now it's created a buffer in my default area of whatever's showing up in the parameter here. And then I'm going to do a dual axis, just like this. And the last part that you need to do is add your actions. So I'm selecting worksheet actions. If you're going to put this in your dashboard, then what you want is dashboard actions. So then I'm going to add my actions, which are going to be parameter actions. I'm going to change parameter. And our target parameter for this one is going to be source lat. So let me just call this one latitude. The field, it's going to be latitude. Here, make sure your sum for aggregation is on none. You don't want to aggregate our points. And then again, I'm going to add the longitude one now. Target param, source long, field, longitude, aggregation is on none. So now, wherever I click on my map, it's going to create my buffer for me. And you can see here in the source and in the lat, it will change depending on wherever it is that I click. And it's all about just formatting and changing the look and feel. And also, again, with the size, let's say I go 400, I can make this bigger, or I can make this smaller, depending on the user and what it is that they want to do. It's a really simple thing to do, but also it's very interactive and cool, and it lets your end user have more control over what's going on. My next tip that I'm going to show you guys is how to use the hex function to create a map that looks like this. And I'm using the Sub-Saharan dataset from the Project Health Fizz to create this. So what we're going to do is we're going to be using a parameter, and we're going to be using the hex bin x function and the hex bin y function for this. So 34 ratio, I'm going to just give the option to see what you want things to look and feel like. And all this is just a simple parameter integer where I put the minimum as 1 and the maximum as 0. And you'll see why I do this. So now we're just going to create the hex bin x calculation. I'm going to call this 2 because I already have this done here. And I'm going to write hex bin x. And here I'm referencing long, which is my longitude in the data set. This calculation will only work if you've got longitude and latitude as actual fields. If you've just got latitude and longitude in brackets with generated, this isn't going to work, which is a really important thing to remember when you're using any of the spatial functions, is that you need to have longitude and latitude as separate fields and not use Tableau's generated ones, because you can't reference them in calculations. And then I'm going to reference my parameter, which I called ratio, comma, latitude, and then again times ratio, just like this. That's my hex bin x. I'm going to go OK, and then let me just duplicate this. See why? Because this is going to be my hex bin y, and it's going to be the exact same calculation. Instead, it's going to be my y coordinate. So that's why I just need to switch out from hex bin x function to hex bin y function. Go OK, and then put this up here and make sure you've got it on the first field here, or make it into discrete. And then do the same thing here. So now I've got my map, and it's pinpointing every single point I have in my data set. So now if I turn off the ratio, if I turn down the ratio, let's say in this example to 3, you can see how it's changed. And in my shape, so I like to pick a diamond shape. I think it looks cool, but it's all about personal preference. I'll turn down the size. And now you can start to see how it looks. And if I make the ratio a lot bigger, you can see what it's doing is it's just creating more points, and it's giving me more detail. So it's all about, again, what kind of look and feel you want to go for. I like making it as small as possible. I think it's really cool. And then if I put number of records on color, so I like to use the log function in this case because it just, my numbers get really, really skewed. So all I'm doing here again is just using the log function and adding that in front of some number of records. Now let me just close my bracket. And it just distributes my colors a lot more. And then if I make this smaller, you can see things will start to change. And if I make the size of it bigger, sort of my triangles, you can start to see where the overlapping is happening. And that's how you get a map that looks like that. It's really cool and easy to do. Yeah, one sec. Sorry, guys. And that's my last tip. So you can end up with something like this. Here I use a ratio of 25 and a different color palette. And these are all the tips that I have. Sophie? I'm going to end showing my screen now.
Thank you, Soha. Ryan, have you finished with your tips as well?
I have, yes.
You guys went through them a lot faster than I thought. Well, give me a second. I will share my screen back. Zoom. I think everybody else on the school, if you're working from home, are probably also having some general Zoom headaches. So I think So thank you, Soha and Ryan, and everybody who joined in. I hope you found those tips really helpful. So hopefully you should be able to see Soha and Ryan's Twitter handles there. Please do follow them on Twitter if you'd like to see some more of their great work. And going from the comments, I will put the workbook up for this, both of these Ryan and Soha's tips. That will go up on YouTube as a comment in this video, probably in a few hours. So after Ryan and Soha publish their workbooks. So Ryan and Soha, how many thumbs up do you think you guys got? Sort of 1 or 2 or quite a few?
4 maybe?
No idea.
You got quite a few, so I think everybody found some of your tips really helpful, especially some of the default number formatting, the big ass numbers, the log for the heat map, very practical, Soha, and some of your LODs. So thank you guys very much for sharing them. If everybody is getting to the end of this live stream, I think Soha's ending on that hex map was pretty cool, and that coupled with any custom, not so custom map styling in Tableau that you showed, Soha, can make some really impactful and powerful visualizations, and it's a great way to display data over a wide geographic range when things like population density may have a real impact on the underlying data. So giving each thing a hex block, which is the same physical size, helps counter for that. So this is the end of our session, our Tableau tips sessions that we've been going through. If you've missed any of them, you can catch all the videos of all the sessions on YouTube, and all the sessions have the workbooks or workflows that are shown during the demonstrations attached to them. So please do check out our Information Lab YouTube channel, and you can go back and rewatch any and all of those videos. And if you want to see what else we've got coming up, we have events getting posted every few days, and so please do follow, join our meetup group, Let's Talk Data. That's where we post the links to all of our upcoming events. So next week we have a few events running. Going up this afternoon, we'll have a session of data prep daily events run by Cal Allerton, a recent Tableau Zen master. And we also have some other events up there around building data communities and working in the current situation, which is a very digital age. So I hope to see you guys on some of those sessions. If you have found any of the tips super helpful and you use them in a visualization that you're allowed to share, we would love to know what you do with any of these tips you've seen over the last week. If that's the case, please do tweet them to us at InfoLabUK. I would love to see what you've been up to. So from me, Sophie Sparks, and from Ryan and Soha, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I hope you have a lovely afternoon or morning or evening. And also, I hope you do stay safe and healthy, particularly given the current situation. So thank you again, and have a lovely weekend.